Howdy and welcome back to Celebrating Vintage Model Kits. Today we're going to be doing a build of the kit from the previous video of the Monogram T-28A U.S. Air Force trainer. Well, it's actually going to be a build of the reissue of the kit. This is the 1999 reissue from Monogram, part of their classic series. So you can see here's the original kit that we reviewed, using the same box art, a little bit of changes. Got the Classics logo. This is printed directly on the cardboard as opposed to the lithograph, so it's a little faded compared to the original. The side looks virtually identical with the change of the logo again here. This end has a UPC area added, so they had to eliminate a couple of the kits on here, and the end of the box is definitely different as well too, using the same artwork but arranged differently here. So what you get inside, of course, is a little bit different as well. You get a different set of plans, some more modern set, but it looks like they're reusing some of the artwork from one of the issues of the kit, and so a little bit different setup. And looks like you get different figures with this kit than you did with the original. So that's this one. No call out or exploded view, which makes it a little bit harder, I think, for some people building this one, because there's no numbers on any of the parts. So you just kind of have to try to figure it out from looking at the part itself. And then on the back side, you've got this. This is better than the original kit. Better painting guide for decal placement. This does come with two sets of decals compared to the first one. The first one, this is the decal set from the original, and they've added this one here from, let's see, this one's TL555 instead of TL763, but very similar in its markings. And then you also get a patch. This was part of that reissue series, so I guess people were collecting these. You get an individual patch, and it's got the T-28 on there. This is another insert of kits that they were reissuing as part of their classic series. We've seen the Kingfisher, we've seen the Devastator and the Typhoon, and let's see, we've done the Trimotor, and the Helldiver. So that's a good way of getting one of the older kits a little bit cheaper. And then here's your decal set. And so these are nicer decals than before, of course, but it looks like pretty much the same. They've got a little bit added extra stuff on here, a little bit more detail. Decals in the original. And then this is bagged as opposed to loose. So here you've got your clear pieces in the bag. Look to be the same. And then the main parts bag. See how much different this looks compared to the original. So unlike what we saw with the original, where these parts were loose, the plastic definitely feels different than the original. Feels a lot flimsier than the original, but some of these parts are still on trees that the other ones didn't have. You can see where This has been reconverted back. It's got what appears to have been holes that were probably added for the T-28D version of the kit that they produced, which was the version that carried weapons stores. So it looks like they changed the mold to be able to have the hard points. There's a hole in the speed brake that's different. And so here we've got the fuselage. You've got a seat. Before you got two different pilots. Now you get one pilot, and you still get the same ground crew guy, but then you've got a standing pilot. So since the pilots were molded into their seats, they've given you a seat to stick in the back. But just a ton of flash on here. You can see these molds are getting pretty old. So there's that. Here's the other half. There's also on the back side here, see a lot more stuff has been added on the inside, more copyrights. All kinds of stuff is inside here now. And here are the other parts on here. More writing on the inside. There's your prop, engine, those look about the same. And your wing, you've got more stuff on the wings. So that's the difference on the kit. Still pretty much the same. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to build this using just the tools that you would have had in 1957, 58 when this kit was first issued. So I'm going to be using some tube glue, enamel paints, just an X-Acto knife. So building it as if it was 1958, and I'm a 8-year-old kid getting this, and I want to have a T-28 by the end of the weekend. So we'll go to the next step here. Okay, so first step on the instructions that come with the kit we're going to be building show and putting together the inside of the cockpit. You've got the seat and the control stick. They're showing on here to paint this entire thing flat black, control stick flat black, and the seat brown. Looking at the original issue, the first step is similar. It's talking about gluing this into here, into the fuselage. Since there is no seat, since this comes with two pilots that are seated, there is no seat to install on this one. But it does have the painting guide here, which talks about painting the panel housing, floorboard inside of the fuselage sides, the cockpit area, and seats as being in a light green, with black for the instruments on the floorboard. So I'm going to follow the original instructions on this, since that seems to be probably a little more accurate on that. So let's start with getting that part. So we've got our floorboard here. So using a pair of wire snippers, cut that off. And get our trusty X-Acto. Shake that off. And look, see if there's any flash needs to come off of it. Definitely has some flash on the bottom here. Not sure if it's going to matter on the installation, but I'm going to trim it off anyway. I think that's about it. So again, we're just going to be using things that were available at the time. So we've got just an X-Acto blade. We've got some good old Testors enamels. We've got tester's glue. This is an old one from the 80s that I had. I'm not sure if it's still going to work. Give it a try, see if it still works. But I did get a thing of modern tester's tube glue. See if this doesn't work. You know, we got this as backup. And tweezers, paintbrush, and some rubber bands, and a little bit of sandpaper, and then I've also got some clothespins. So I think that's about the extent of what a kid would have had at the time to put this together. So that's what we're going to start with. All right, so I'm going to paint this up and then go to the next step. Okay, so we have the little cockpit tub all painted up, glued in the seat, and add a little bit of details with a toothpick, just hitting little spots of red and yellow just to give it something. And then we have the fuselage pieces. Got the interior sides of those painted with the green as well. And looks like we got some flash, so I'm going to trim off some of this flash here. Clean that up. Trim this. One thing I noticed on this fuselage piece, and both of them actually, is that there is no slot for that stand that went inside where the arrestor gear went on the Navy version. On this Air Force version, they had used that slot to create a little stand that would fold in, but that's not on this one. So I'm going to assume at some point when they converted this into a T-28D, they eliminated that. Probably the same time that they changed the cockpit a little bit as well. And you can definitely see how these molds have gotten a little wore out by the amount of flash that you're seeing in places that weren't on the older kit. So just a little bit of extra cleanup, which isn't that big a deal, but the finish. So since this doesn't have that stand, that folding stand, then that I've looked in more detail at the instructions, and that explained what the additional hole in the speed brakes was there for, because they give you just a little plastic little tube or something to fit into that hole to act as a stand. So I'm going to consider sticking some weights in the nose of this kit in order to get it to not be tail heavy, so that way it sits on its nose gear. So I think just sticking a little piece of plastic out the hole is not as nice as the folding thing they had before on it. So got that cleaned up. Now we're going to, according to the instructions, this should be going in here this spot here. And then resting up against these pins. And so, let's get some glue in there. And so we've got some tube glue squirted out here on the wax paper. Forgot how stringy this stuff gets. I'm going to put some on in here. Put some up in here. Yeah, this is stringy stuff. And then across this little ledge here. Let's get a little more glue. Makes you appreciate the liquid cement a lot more, that's for sure. Okay, so got that in there. There we go. So now we've got our cockpit tub in place. Set that aside to dry. And let's look at the next steps. Okay, so we got that installed. Next step is going to be getting your nose wheel strut. Now here they're telling you to paint it flat white. They also have the, I tell you, paint the horizontal stabilizer yellow. I'm not sure if that's really good. I don't recall seeing any of these having a yellow tail on there, so I don't know what that yellow is for. Let's look at the original instructions. See what they show for next step. So after checking some reference, it looks like the landing gear is silver on these Air Force aircraft. So I'm going to be painting this front strut silver, and it's going to be going inside the fuselage when I put those two halves together. At the same time, I'm also going to do the main gears in the silver as well too. So take care of that and then get to the next step. Okay, so we have the fuselage glued together. Stuck the tailplane through there. I did not glue the tailplane in place. It holds in pretty good. It does shift around a little bit, but I think it's fine. I got the front landing gear in place. Did paint it silver to kind of make it stand out a little bit, since the white's not very accurate. Got some rubber bands around here to hold it together. I am going to put one clamp on the back here to kind of hold this section together here. Hopefully this holds. There we go. And, guess that's not going to hold. Let's try this. Try it this way. There we go. All right, so we'll hold that one there. And I'm going to put one on the tip of the tail here. Hold the tail together while it dries. Thought I had some larger clothesline, but I don't, so I'm just going to use these clamps. Okay, so that's our fuselage. So we'll set that over here to dry. And, oops. And nothing ever goes the way you want it to. Put it back on there. All right, set that over here. All right, so the next step is fuselage together, rubber bands. Okay, the wheels, gluing those wheels on. Okay, well, I think probably the next step is going to be to paint these, paint the tires on the wheels. So let's get to that so that way we can put this wing together. All right, next. Okay, so next up is going to be putting the wheel on to the axle. And then you have to heat up a knife and then melt the tip there to make the wheel stay on. So I'm going to use an old knife here, heat it up with the lighter here, and we'll see how that goes. It's been probably about 30-40 years since I've done this, so hopefully this works. And right, and got kind of a little stub there. The wheel still spins. I have to trim that off a little bit. Here's my X-Acto blade. Clean it up a little bit. And it's not the best, but you can do it a little bit more. Let's try this again. I flattened it a little bit more. Yeah, so wheel stays on. And let's do the other two. Okay, so we have the wheels attached now. Here's our nose gear. And here's the two main gears. Free spinning still. Whee. Okay, so next part on here shows that need to put the landing gear inside the lower wing, put the top wing on top. Be mindful not to get glue or anything around where the gear fits inside. So let's take a look at those parts, see what we need to do with them. So here's the lower wing. Looks like a little bit of cleanup needs to be done on this. So we'll take care of that. And here's the top wing pieces. So looks like a little bit of cleanup on these. And they've now added this, I guess that's Monogram Models ink stamping in there. I don't think that was on the original. And so since that would be visible inside the wheel well, I'm going to see if I can't scrape that off. And then I'm going to paint the interior of this the green, since the photo reference had showed that these Air Force Ones had zinc chromate on the inside of the wheel wells. And so I'll put the green inside here like we had inside the cockpit, and then glue the parts together. Not sure how well you can see this, but the molds have really gotten old on here. So across the front, you can see a little bit of plastic seepage into where the mold is supposed to stop. So you got these little bumps along the whole front edge here. So I'm going to try cleaning these things off with a little bit of X-Acto on here. Trying to get a little more of a straight edge, smoother finish on it. Also kind of clean up underneath here so that the way it closes nicely. Something else I noticed on this kit too, I've cleaned up a few of these, but you can see it on here too. So not only do you have you got the ejector pin here, but then there's these other little pin marks that are on some of these edges that they themselves have got some ridges on them. So I've been scraping those things off as well too. So like here's a good example. Here's one here. This is this raised pin here, which is going to prevent a good tight seal on the rear of this wing. And so I'll try to smooth that out so we get a better fit. And here's another one here. This wing root. I'm going to take a look at the original kit again, see if it has that same problem. Looks like the rear edge is not as bad as the front. Trailing edge there. And we have the same thing again here on these pins. And attachment point on the sprue. It's a nice big bulge on there. And so doing this to try to get as smooth a fit as possible. I don't think these are going to matter. This trailing edge one definitely will. These leading edge ones definitely will. Get a little more off of this one. And a little more here. And same thing with this one. Front. Much better. The trailing edge, a little bit here. And then same thing with the attachment to sprues on here. Okay, so I'm going to finish cleaning this up and do the same thing on the lower wing surface, and we'll come back to that. Okay, so we have the wings together. Got them rubber band to hold them in place and get the gears in there. Got a couple clamps to hold the trailing edge. From underneath you can see the assembly on here. So we're coming together. Next thing is going to be to install these little hinge plates. Looks like you drop the main gear doors in here. Then you put these little plates on top to hold them in place. So I have already painted the inside of the gear doors. And so I got both of those ready to go. And then on the plates, there's some more of the ejector pin stuff on there, so trimmed up a little bit of that. Not going to see much of that. There is the numbers on the back of those, but those are going to be on the inside, so I don't think you're going to have to deal with those. Those will be on the inside. Okay, so wait for this to dry, and then glue on those parts, and then we'll go to the next step. Okay, so this is where we're at now. We've got the gear doors in place with those little tabs. I went ahead and put some matte black on the wing walks here. There's anti-skid pieces there. It's supposed to be black line for this wing walk area here, which I'm going to have to add on. But it's coming together. Fuselage wise, got the cockpit inside there. Painted the anti-glare panel. There's our gear. Painted a little bumper. And I went ahead and started to paint the engine. So used a little bit of a thin down enamel on the engine area. Just got to give it a wash to give it a nice look in there. And then painted the insides of the intakes and the front half of the anti-glare panel, which will go on there. So we got that. Went ahead and started painting the prop. Need to hit the yellow tips a little more since they're not quite all yellow. You can see a lot of black still coming through. Part of the instrument panel for the rear part of the cockpit. And I went ahead and scraped off all the bumps and numbers and stuff on the gear doors and painted these on the inside. So we're getting close. Next step is going to be to put the wing and the fuselage together. Test fitting this. The rear part looks pretty good. The front part looks okay. There's a substantial gap in between the wing and the fuselage. And so you're putting that in there. And then once that is in there and together, then you're supposed to cut this tab out. I guess that's kind of holding it in place for right now. So we're getting pretty close. So we'll see how this comes out. Okay, so we got the wings glued on here. Looks pretty good down here. Front doesn't quite line up the best. This side is a little bit. Tried kind of pushing this out, but it's not quite a good fit there. And on the top, this side's not too bad. This side definitely has a big gap. And so I'm not sure if that's a result of tooling, over the years, or if the original one was that way. So that's where we're at. And so next part's going to be cutting this little piece out here, and then putting the nose on prop, the extra gear doors, and we're going to be close to getting this done. All right, boys and girls, so we're back, and I believe I have solved the problem that I created. So I had glued in some lead sinkers to try to keep the nose down on this, and they had bumped up against this, which I didn't, when I tested it, I didn't have these in here, and I thought, oh, okay, it'll be fine, but it didn't. So, couldn't pop them out because the glue had set. So I got out the trusty old Dremel and sanded these suckers down. And now, I believe I've got a good fit. So, kind of rubbed off a lot of the paint that I put on there, so I have to repaint that, clean this up a little bit, and then I think we're ready to get this engine on here, and the gear door goes on at the same time. And then we've got cleaned up the rear cockpit piece, put the sliding pieces on there, and then we'll bust out the canopies, put those in there. And then we've got our pilot crewman. He'll be going in there as well. So, not the bestest job in the world, but for the purposes of what we're trying to accomplish here, I think he'll be fine. So he's going to go inside there. And then this fits in side here, and once we get the canopy piece on there, then we'll be good. So that slides back, and we seem to have a problem with it bumping up against something, so to figure that out. Yep. Okay, so I'll have to trim that down, it looks like, for that to fit. Okay, so let me get these pieces together and we'll be to the next step. Okay, so we got the nose on. So, a little bit of a challenge, but I was able to get it so that the gear still retracts and this gear door closes and holds. I had to trim a lot off of this side here in order for the gear door to actually close. And you can see the fit on this side here leaves a bit to be desired, which is probably contributing to part of that problem. And I'm gonna have to repaint this top part here since rubbed up a lot of it. Prop still spins, but once I got the nose on there, it was tail sitting still. Thought I'd loaded up enough weight in there, which caused the problem, but still wasn't enough. So I was able to, it's kind of hard to see in here, but this was wide open, so I was able to drop a couple more lead sinkers in there, put some glue down in there, and now we've got an aircraft that sits on its nose wheel. So success finally. Wondering if some of these fit problems are because of it being you know, at this point here in 1999, basically a 40-year-old mold that's been redone many times. So this would definitely be a lot more difficult for a new modeler to get some of these things working correctly if it wasn't fit issues back then. Then also test fitted the canopy, sliding canopy, which is supposed to pop into these slots on the side here. But initially, you can see here, there's these round pins that you're supposed to put in here. But on this side, that round pin was bumping up against this. And so I think the cockpit is slightly set too far to the left. So that pin was bumping here and would not allow the canopy to close. So I ended up trimming the side of the pin because you only need the one side to fit inside the rail. So now it does go in there. With a little bit of effort, it does slide in and get to the closed position. So that's the sliding canopy. So I'm going to go ahead and glue the canopy onto the rear portion. Going to paint up the framing here in silver, get that on, and then we'll be touch up some of the paint on here, and then we should be ready for some decals. Well, boys and girls, we're at the end of the line. Finally got stuff put together and working, and did final touch-ups on the paint. Got our gear going. Got the stupid canopy working right. And go to decal it, and bam. Completely disintegrating. So I'm gonna have to find some other decals or find something out of the spare parts box. But man, these things looked okay, but clearly they're not. I know there's a technique of, you know, spraying a clear coat on it. So I might try doing that, but that's it for this one. It's definitely a challenge of a kit. I would not recommend this for a first-time builder, even though this is a 1955 kit. It definitely is challenging to get all these things working right. So I don't know if it's these later moldings on it have affected the fit and how it goes together. Yeah, maybe one day I'll try putting together the 55 kit that I've got, but this repop definitely has its challenges on trying to get it to work, but did finally get it to sit on its tail, or it's on its nose wheel. So there's almost a whole ounce of weight inside that nose. So if you are going to build one of these, pack it full of lead or weights or whatever you use to weigh down your stuff, but be cautious of how you're doing it. Well, that's it. Sorry it didn't come out to a completed kit here, but at least you get to see what this Monogram kit looks like when it is put together. So and I was again using the techniques and tools that were available in 1955. So just your tube cement, that's it. An X-Acto blade, some toothpicks, brushes, and testers enamels. That's it. So there you go. Well, thanks for watching. I'm going to try doing a few more builds so you can see what they look like. And we'll see how those come out. Maybe the decals will hold up better. Well, thanks for watching, and have yourself a great rest of your day.